Okay, here we are again. Sorry about the lateness of this live stream. What happened was my restream connection was cut off from YouTube, and I think the reason is that now Restream has added a feature, or YouTube has added a feature or something, which now means that I can actually stream to the place where I schedule the YouTube stream. So the way I've been doing it before, for very boring reasons, was that I had to create a schedule in YouTube, and but that just functioned as a kind of placeholder, and then I had to restream to somewhere else on YouTube because of streaming to multiple channels, because there wasn't any way in Restream of actually directing that stream to that particular place. So I had to put in the comments, the stream is not here, go to my YouTube channel at the time of this stream. But now a feature has been added just today, as I've noticed, where I can actually stream to the correct place. But I think in adding that feature or something, it broke the connection, so I had to go and reset up the connection, which explains why I'm late. So I am sorry about that. I'm sorry about the issues there. Douglas, yes, I will answer your email when I can. I get an enormous amount of emails, so you have to be patient when you're emailing me. I will get back to you about the leap. But just so you know, we run 4 classes of the leap a year, and I've just, well, when I say just started, we're in week 1. No, actually, we're in week 2 now of a class. So there won't be anything happening for a little while. So, hello, Rob. Sorry about the frustration there. I got could tell Rob was frustrated because we had a 3 question marks question. At least it wasn't 3 question marks and an exclamation mark. So sorry about that. Hi, Jabolch. Hello, M Classic. Hello, GT. And hello, Irenka. Is GT? Is that Gary? Is that the GT? Who knows? Anyway, let's get on with this. Today we're doing a strengths splurge, and this is my original template that I started with. Hang on a minute, this isn't the right one. Oh. Anyway, I can do it from here. So this is an original template. Let me see if I can find the correct one. I'm going to have to sort this out soon. Don't save. Grant. Hello, Grant. So I had a masterminder who called himself GT, so I was wondering if that was him. But anyway, hello, Grant. Glad to have you here. I thought it was that one. Oh, it's this. There we go. Yes, I think this is the one. So this should be working now. Maybe I didn't save it. There we go. There we go. Hi, self-diving from Almaz, and hello, Daniel. Okay. So how many people watching right now are actually doing the splurge, the idea explosion challenge at this point? Oh, it's working. Hello, Bart. I'm taking any questions you want, Rob. Yeah, you don't need to ask me if you can ask a question. Just ask. I mean, you can ask me about the price of baked beans if you want. I won't be able to answer it. Well, I mean, I probably would be able to answer it, but I wouldn't be able to give you any useful information about that. But you can ask me anything you want. You don't need to ask for my permission about that. I'm here to help in whatever way I might be able to. Okay. Okay, I'm just going through this, making sure it's all working because I didn't have time before the stream because of my technical problem. One thing that if or when you get to live streaming that you will find is that there is an extended period when things don't work. There's an extended period where you have all kinds of technical issues. So just to put it out there for you, that's just what happens. Okay, Daniel's doing the splurge. Rob's doing the splurge. Grant is a leap lurker. Fantastic. M is on day 0. Brilliant. It's okay. You can ask a long question too, Rob. That's fine. Okay. So self-diving has a question about instruments, drum parts. Let me go to the front. Studio cam. Yep. So, question about instruments, drum parts. Should I just take any instrument of this frequency group? Yes. By keeping in mind that I will most likely change the sound during the development phase. What do you mean development phase, first of all? And am I just painting a sketch of painting knowing that the lines in the final piece will be thicker or another colour and etc.? And what about not prepare the template because I know how to fastly group up the brute of instruments that will resonate with me at the moment? While you are technically issuing, I am doing the splurge right now. So the point of the splurge is there are many reasons to do a splurge, and not all of them are to do with the result of any particular splurge. In fact, many of them aren't. Many of them are to do with actually training you. It's like the difference between, and I'm going to make, I'm not very good at sports. All right. How about more of a musical one, a musical analogy? All right. Now, I don't practice scales in order to get good at a specific piece. I mean, I do kind of indirectly, yeah. So on the piano, yeah. Say, oh, no, where are we? Yeah. So say on the piano, I practice. Pick an easy one. D major, yeah. Yeah, so I'm practicing D major, yeah. I'm not practicing that to get good at a specific piece. Yes, it will help me, like practicing scales every day will help me get good at playing pieces, but it won't necessarily help me get good at playing something that's in D flat major. Yeah, because it's like all of the fingerings are different. It's different notes, and so the spacings are different. Yeah, it will somewhat, but I'm not. But if I'm practicing a sonata, if I'm trying to learn a sonata in D flat major, practicing D major doesn't exactly. I mean, it kind of does, but it kind of doesn't. Yeah. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the ways I want you to think about what the splurge is. Yeah, a splurge isn't just for making every idea good, or even the majority of ideas good. A splurge is like doing scales. Similarly, there are some technical exercises in, for instance, football or fencing, yeah, which you don't actually use those specific things. But you do them because they help you do the thing that you want to do in general, which improves your ability to play football or fence or basketball or whatever it is. Yeah? And this is what the splurge is about. It's like training, which means that you can make music better. Yeah. So what I'm reading here from self-diving is there's a very, very big focus on the result. Yeah. Should I just take any instrument of this frequency group by keeping in mind I will most likely change the sound during the development phase? Again, you're focusing on the result there. The development phase of finishing a piece of music, yeah? And am I just making a sketch of a painting, knowing that the lines in the final piece, that's assuming that there will be a final piece in every splurge, yeah, will be thicker or another color, etc. Yeah. And what about not preparing the template? Because I know how to fast build a group of instruments that will resonate with me at the moment. Why do you want them to resonate with you at the moment? Because you want the result to be good. And of course, because you want to have fun. Now, that isn't to say that some of your splurges won't end up you finishing them and doing something with them. Yeah. That would be ridiculous if that was the case. Yeah. But what it is that you want to not be so focused on the result. But let me answer the specific questions that you've asked, because I don't want you to be frustrated by my answer by me not answering it. Yeah. But just bear in mind, overall, that the major point of the splurge, yes, you do get great ideas that you want to work on in the future. But really, the major point of the splurge is as a training, as a daily practice, as a daily training. So, should I just take any instrument of this frequency group by keeping in mind that I will most likely change the sound during the development phase? Yes. Am I just making a sketch of painting, knowing that the lines in the final piece will be thicker or another color, etc.? Yes. You are making a sketch. It's like taking clay and throwing it on the wheel. Yeah. Not any more than that. Yeah. And what about not preparing the template? Because I know how to fastly build the group of instruments that I will resonate with at the moment. Yeah, I mean, you might as well put in instruments that you resonate with at the moment. But arguably, in terms of the training, sometimes it's more effective to use instruments that you don't resonate with, because then it's a heavier weight for the training part of it, about the not focusing on quality. Because one of the things about the music making process is that no matter, I mean, occasionally you make a track really fast and you love it all the way through, but if you do it for a long time and you make lots and lots of music, the majority of the time you're anything from feeling neutral to actively disliking what you're doing, even if the actual thing you were doing is good. I'm sure you've noticed that. Yeah. In that situation, developing the skill, developing the ability to continue making progress when it's not resonating with you is a wonderful one to build, right? So that's why, yes, of course. I mean, I'm not saying only use instruments that you can't stand. I'm not saying that at all. But just bear that in mind too. Don't be so concerned about everything being like exactly what you want it to be up front. Okay. Great. I'm glad that you get it. Yeah, there's multiple reasons for doing the splurge, and only one of them is getting the great ideas right there and then. Yeah. That is a point of it, though. But bear in mind, a lot of this stuff, it's so kind of multi-layered and so nuanced that it's very difficult to get it all across in a short space of time. And really, the only way of you understanding really what it means is to do it. So thank you for the question. They were great questions. Darren Leaf, hello. If you sample someone else's vocals and put them in your own track, would you gain sample clearance first? Or is it okay to send to labels? You asked me this question last time on another, and it's almost exactly the same question. It's almost making me feel like Darren Leaf is a bot, because I remember this question exactly. Is it okay to send to labels and hopefully they will help you get clearance if they like the track? As I have read, it can be quite expensive. Darren, can you just confirm to me that you are an actual human being? Because you've sent me, it's almost like I even remember this being exactly the same question worded in exactly the same way, which is very strange. Okay, so Gaetan, question concerning the splurging. I'm doing, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe somebody else asked the question, but it almost seems like, I even remember it says, as I have read, it can be quite expensive. Yeah. Do you have a question that you copy and paste in various different places or something? Because it's very strange. Anyway, so self-diving saying, my mind had just tricked me now then. I thought I do splurging, but I was looking for something that I like. Yes, absolutely. Now aware. Thanks. Alarm is on. Brilliant. Okay. So I'll come to your question, Darren. I will come to your question. I will answer it again. No worries. And just let me answer Gaetan first. Hey, Mike. Question concerning the splurging. I'm doing nothing but splurging the last 2 days. But do you recommend to only splurge, or do you do a part splurging and then working on other projects? So, what I would do if you're doing the challenge. And you can, if you've got no deadlines, specific deadlines for music, then just splurge for the next 10 days so that you gain the most benefit from this process. Of course, you don't only do splurging when you're making music. That would be, I mean, I suppose you could, but you probably wouldn't end up finishing loads of music. You would finish some because you can, once you practice enough, you can kind of splurge entire tracks out every now and again. But yeah, it's not something that you do. It's just the start of a process, really. But during the course of this challenge, if you're actually doing the 10-day challenge, it's only 10 days out of your life, and you'll learn a lot more the more that you practice it and the more that you do it, and you'll get better at it as well. I mean, splurging is an absolutely fantastic way of getting better at your chosen setup because you're doing everything a lot more because you're going really fast. Yeah. So, I think sometimes we're all a little too careful about things, and we don't actually make the progress we could because we're so careful not to make mistakes that we end up not practicing enough. Yeah, actually, an inherent part of practicing is doing things we can't do and making mistakes so that we can see how to fix them. And if we're too careful trying to avoid mistakes all the time, then we're not actually practicing effectively. Yeah, and it's not that we're trying to make mistakes. It's just we're going to the very limits of what we can do and then seeing where the mistakes are. And that's how you practice. So if you've got no deadlines, then I would recommend splurging all the time. You don't have to do that, but I would recommend it if you want to get the most out of this process. Okay, so now let's come back to Darren's question. And Darren is not a bot, so I apologize. So it's almost like it's weird. It's exactly the same question. Okay, so just go back to the question. If you sample someone else's vocals and put them in your own track, would you gain sample clearance first? Or is it okay to send to labels and hopefully they will help you get clearance if they like the track? I have read it can be quite expensive. So let me just first say I am not a music lawyer. So this is not legal advice. And I have a limited understanding of the intricacies of copyright law. So if you need actual legal advice, please seek the advice of a lawyer. This is just a personal opinion from somebody who has been working in music for a long time. So I just want to make that very clear. This is not legal advice. Yes, you are breaking the law. I'm not even going to put it in air quotes. You are breaking the law by sampling somebody else's thing and putting it in your own track. But the law really comes into play if somebody, so when lawyers get involved is if somebody decides, hang on a minute, they've done that and I want something from it. Now, often, not always, often that tends to happen where there is money being made for that piece of music because you have stolen something from somewhere else and you've literally stolen their money. There is an argument, however, for saying on the other side that the money that is being made would not have been made without you having stolen it. So there's a bit of, and I don't know what that means legally, probably nothing in terms of copyright law, I'm not sure. Yeah, but really the point here is that until somebody actually becomes liable, so for instance, if you put that piece of music up on SoundCloud, it's a problem for SoundCloud because all of the people who owned the rights were going, hang on a minute, SoundCloud, these people are nicking all our stuff. What are you going to do about it? Yeah, and obviously SoundCloud wanted to be able to work with with other people in the industry, so they had to do something about it. Same with YouTube, etc., etc., etc. But really, in terms of when the problem comes legally, it's if somebody decides that's a problem and I'm gonna do something about it. I'm gonna get the lawyers involved and I'm gonna come down hard on them. But you are breaking copyright law by doing that. Now, your question: do I send it? Am I able to send it to labels? Yeah, and get them to clear the sample. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, if you're going to put it out yourself, then the legal thing to do, and I think the only right thing to do, would be to get sample clearance yourself. Yeah, because somebody has to do it. You can't be putting out music that has samples on without getting clearance. I think that's fair to say. Yeah. When I say samples, I'm not talking about sample packs. I'm not talking about cleared samples. I'm talking about samples of other people's music. Yeah. However, in terms of whether you do it before you send it to a label, if you're not going to put it out yourself, then it is really the label who will decide whether they want to or not. However, I think it's fair to say that most labels might not want to do that because it's not just the money. It's also a real hassle and it takes ages. The music industry in many ways, particularly in the publishing copyright kind of area, is very, very in the past. It's like a massive, it's like a huge oil tanker that is gradually turning around. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is kind of going like this, and the oil tanker is going. I mean, I remember. It wasn't so long ago. It was just a couple of years ago. And in order, I won't mention the actual organization, but it's an organization where you get royalties as a musician. In order for me to see my royalties, I can't remember what it was, but I had to have Windows 98 or something. It was that bad. I had to have it so that I could load the software that they used. And this was just a couple of years ago. Maybe Windows 98 was a bit long ago. But anyway, it was some really, really obsolete version of Windows. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's not all like that, obviously, but it is very like that. So it's a real hassle, basically, for labels to get sample clearance. And what they may well do, if they really like the track, is say, can you get somebody to re-sing it? Or can you do something else so that we don't have to clear the sample? Or, to be honest, they may well just ignore it because they're just like, I can't face it. Yeah, and for one thing, we might not ever get it. We might not get a response. It's going to take ages and it's going to cost us money. And let's face it, most labels, unless you're talking about the really big ones, most labels haven't got that kind of money. They've already got to put a lot of bets on you to put your music out at all, let alone having to clear a sample. So that's hopefully that is helpful, but please bear in mind, I'm not a music lawyer, and that wasn't legal advice. Yeah, what I might be thinking about is what can I do to replace the sample with something else, just to keep my life easy and increase my chances of actually getting the thing out on the label. So Gaetan saying, cool, clear, it is for the challenge. Yes, must say that I see a significant improvement already in output of music ideas. Brilliant. Pete, follow up on Gaetan's question. Assuming you're not on a splurge challenge, how do you segment your music making time? I segment my music. What percentage is daily splurging versus discovery versus draft? Yes. So just so that everybody is clear, let's go over to Computer Cam, and I just want to show you the automatic music machine. So here we see the splurge column. Yep. And then here's the next phases. So that's the sketchbook where everything remains. That's the gold mine. And all of these are tracks. Yep. And here is the in progress phase of the machine. Yep. Discover, draft, and done. Okay. So I am spending, so this will oscillate depending on what phase I'm in. So for instance, when I'm actually doing a challenge, for instance, I'm doing 100 splurge challenge, and I did foolishly say at the start of this challenge that I was going to do a 100 splurge challenge, and I'm already on day 3 and I haven't done very much. so I'm going to have to do some catching up if I'm going to do that. But anyway, because the last time I did a 100 splurge challenge, I wasn't live streaming my splurges, and obviously I'm spending a lot of time answering questions, which is absolutely fine. But yeah, anyway, I'll come back to later. So if I'm doing 100 splurges, I tend to just be splurging, obviously, because that's my focus. Yeah. So for instance, similar to what I told Gaetan, I'm just focusing on the idea generation part. What I find with doing a kind of challenge where you're getting yourself to do as much as possible, which is essentially pushing the speed button, big button called speed, and you're going, wind in. If I had hair, that kind of thing. That actually is training you in a very particular way. It is clarifying things in a very particular way, but it isn't what you always do. It's not the only thing we can do, but it's a wonderful thing to do. Colin Bradbury, the novelist, said, "In quickness comes truth." That in itself, never has a truer word been spoken. There is a truth to going fast. It strips away so much about what we think we are. It's a really great way of finding out about where we're at. Okay, so when I'm focusing on a challenge, I am just really splurging and nothing else, almost exclusively. Yeah. However, in the normal course of making music, what I'm tending to do is one splurge a day, which can take me anything from 10 minutes to half an hour is usually the maximum, unless something, I get completely into flow and just finish something, which sometimes happens. Is 5 minutes to half an hour, and then the rest of the time that I have, which sometimes isn't any more than half an hour or even 5 minutes with my life, with the rest of the time that I have, I am working in discover, draft, and done. Okay, so sometimes that's 4 hours a day. If I'm really super lucky, I do try and reserve a swathe of time on my Saturdays for a day like that. But usually I'm snatching little sessions here and there between coaching sessions, between a meeting, between having to, write an email or, create a video or do a live stream. I'm just snatching little sessions. Sometimes I'll just open up a draft track and do one of the things on my list of things to do, and then I will export it, and then I'll go and do whatever else I have to do. Look after the kids, homeschool the kids, whatever it is that I'm doing. But when I'm not in a challenge, majority of my time is in discover, draft, and done. Okay, so Rob, when you say that kind of a question, you're going to have to speak to. So when you ask that question, I didn't appreciate what kind of a technical question that is. That's almost like a technical support question that you'd have to speak to Machina about. Yeah, I mean, if anybody who has read Rob's question, I'm trying to play the Roland SH32 from the machine pads within Logic Pro. I can, however, play it through standalone Channel 9, no problem. I've tried saving Machine Project with Channel 9 input as machine controller Mark II as well as bot. So that kind of a question, I mean, I don't know, because there's so many things it could be, and I would need to ask you multiple different questions. So that's not the kind of question that is, I think, possible to answer. And you did ask me. If you could ask it, and that's absolutely fine. Always try and ask it, and I'll let you know if I can answer it. I can't give you valuable information on that. There's too many things it could be. I mean, when I'm working out things like that, I'm basically let me talk about how I work through technical issues like that. That's probably the best way of answering this question. The number one thing I do is I usually refer, so if I've hit a wall with a technical issue, in fact, there are certain things I do before I refer to the manual. If I hit a technical wall, I will, first of all, say to myself, stop. What am I actually trying to do here? So this is a zooming out question. Yeah? Am I actually trying to do this precise thing that I want to do? Right, so route this through that. Because usually what I'm actually trying to do is a zoomed out thing, which is I'd really like to be able to play this through this. or I'd really like to have that coming out of there so that I can separate those two things. And then I'll ask myself, well, why am I doing that? Well, the reason I'm doing that is because I want to do this, which is a yet another higher level. So I keep on asking myself, well, why am I doing those things, until I get to the point where it's just like, I'm just doing it because I want to make music, because that's kind of useless. But as you zoom out through the kind of levels of why am I actually plugging this thing in here to make this work through there? What is the actual reason? You kind of progressively zoom out. You ask why, until you get to, well, a kind of compositional reason, or maybe a workflow reason that makes sense to you, because I want to be quicker doing this. When you get to that level, a useful level, not to the point where, because I want to leave a legacy for my children, that's not useful in this case, but when you get to because when you ask why multiple times, you go up, always zoom out. Almost always you'll zoom out to kind of higher levels of why you're doing something. Yeah. So when you get to a useful level, you say, well, before you go into the technical thing, yeah, you often you'll get, well, is that the only way of doing this? And usually the answer to that question will be no, it's not the only way of doing this. I could get a similar or maybe even better result by doing something else, by doing it a different way, which I already know how to do. Right? Thereby, what you've done, not only have you avoided a rabbit hole of epic proportions of trying to do something a certain way, you've also zoomed out of the technical detail and got a much more broad view of why you are doing what you are doing. And often you'll find an even better way of doing it. So you've not only sidestepped something, you've also improved your understanding of what you're doing. So that's what I would suggest, because it's very easy to get obsessed with, but I actually want to do this specific thing, right? And what I always do before I start going into troubleshoot mode, this isn't working as I expected, therefore, is I will zoom out. And it just saves so much time. And you find your own ways of doing things often, because you can just end up in an internet rabbit hole of, hours and hours and hours. Okay. So I haven't answered your question, but maybe I've given you some insight on how I deal with technical issues like this. Okay. I just need to drink some water. Okay. Yeah, so Ron's asking a really good question. Thank you, Ron. Do you have any tips for quickly making drum tracks? Currently, I'm just programming MIDI notes in one at a time in the DAW. Yes, I do. Right now, let's go over to Studio Cam. No, not Studio Cam, Computer Cam. Right, so at the moment, let's just get something up here. Let's just get this up. All right, so what you are doing, let's just call that 808 at the moment, Ron. And by the way, with the people asking questions, please stay on, because I will get to all of these questions. I'm going to make sure, even if I don't have time to do a splurge myself on this, I will make sure I get to all your questions. So please stay on, and please also like this video if you're into what we're doing here. And please go ahead and like the video. It would be doing me a massive favor. Telling the algorithms that this is something that, oh look, they've got new icons, yay! Sorry, that's the first time I've got excited about the Logic update. How sad am I? And I'm not saying, by the way, that I don't like these things at all. It's just when I see new things like this, I know that what that means is that I'm not going to make a lot of music in the time that I'm learning about this, and that tends to bug me a bit. So I'm not saying that it's not a good thing, but in an unqualified way, I say that really pleases me because I use the 808 a lot, and they've now got an icon for the 808, and I couldn't be bothered to go and get one myself. So anyway, just shows you how my mind works, right? Okay, so what Ron is doing at the moment, I presume, is something like this. And I'm not saying this is wrong, okay? Because there's a lot of great producers that do this, okay? So probably doing something like this. Is it C1? Yeah. So let's just go. Oop. Right. Let's just go like that. Right, and I mean, just be in your mind timing me doing this. All right. There we go. All right. And obviously, I'm not as fast as I would be if I did this all the time. Okay. So, you know, there's lots of things that you would avoid. All right. Okay. There we go. And like that. All right. So now I've got a kick drum in there. Yeah. So I don't know how long that took. 30 seconds, 45 seconds, something like that. Yeah. Now let's do this. So just to hang on. Sorry. Got to turn off the pattern. Oh, come on. Roland Cloud. Please don't have not authorized me. Yeah, good. Right. Oop. Right. There we go. Right. So, yeah. So that took me 30 seconds. 45 seconds, something like that. Right. Now, let's do it a different way. Right. Let's get the click track on. What's going on? That's okay. I can't hear the click track. Sorry, reset the timer. I don't know what's going on. Click while recording. Strange. Maybe it's changed because of the update. Anyway. Right. So from the time that I actually sorted out the metronome, how long does that take me? Five seconds, 10 seconds, something like that. So there you can see. So just imagine that. I mean, even if I was going, let's say I go really, really fast with the drawing in thing, yeah, and it takes me like 15 seconds, yeah, right, and then you just think about, so, and let's say that took me 5 seconds. It took me the amount of time it took to play, yeah. So if you just think about the amount of times that you are doing that in the creative process in various different ways. So you've got, you know, maybe hats, maybe a snare, maybe a, you know, a loop, or maybe, you know, bass lines, all of these different kind of things. Can you see how much, even if you are the fastest, like, you know, drawer, it's possible to have. Can you see how much more time that is going to create over the course of your music making career? It's a lot, right? Even if you're super fast. Yeah. Now you might say, yeah, but Mike, I can't do that. But that's kind of like, I mean, could you walk when you came out of your mother's womb? You know, there's only two things that you could really do. Maybe I have three things that you could really do when you came out of your mother's womb. One was cry. The other was various forms of horrible substances coming out of your mouth and other orifices. And really, oh yeah, and the other is possibly drink milk. But in some cases, babies even have to learn that. Yeah, you don't know how to sleep. I mean, you do sleep, but you don't really know how to sleep. Yeah, you've learned literally everything. Yeah, it's amazing how little. I mean, when you have a baby, it's amazing how little they can do. They literally can't do anything. Yeah. So what I'm suggesting to you, Ron, is that get a little like, you know, one of those Korg Nano things, and start actually trying to play things in time. You'll be rubbish at it at first, yeah, but just get into the habit of practicing that, and that time that you invest in doing that, instead of drawing things in, will pay itself off in spades as you get better at it. If you can't afford a little MIDI controller, then use the keyboard MIDI input on the computer keyboard. The other benefit of that is that you get a different sense of the music. It's a more kinesthetic sense. It's an embodied sense of the music. It's actually coming out of you in terms of playing it in. It's a little bit, it's even more like this, but it's a little bit like the difference between writing with a pen and typing, but it's even more than that, because you're actually playing the music. Yeah, and you play in the way that you play. Yeah. So I would thoroughly recommend actually starting to play some of this stuff in, even if you can't yet, because as I said, when you were a baby, you couldn't do anything. Okay. That's not to say, by the way, that drawing things in is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. Okay. The other thing you can do actually, Ron, is also if that's how you kind of feel about the drum tracks, just create parts. It depends what kind of music you're playing. Create stock parts and just use them over and over again. So a kick drum over and over again, and have that as a starting template, or a hat. So if you're writing house music, have a kick, hat, and cap going, yeah, and just use that over and over again. There's no problem with doing that. Don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Kenneth say, is it still possible to come in for this challenge? Yes, you can try the I haven't got the link to hand, but if you can find the order form and try Practice 2020. I don't know if it's been taken off, because obviously this is usually a $50 product, but you can try the coupon code Practice 2020. I think we have officially started, so it's finished, but give it a go, because I'm not sure. Try that. If not, email me at mike@makemusicyourlife.com. Well, actually, probably better, quicker would be support@makemusicyourlife.com. You'll get a quicker response, and say that on a live stream, Mike said that I could do it, and then you can come in. If you've already done it, then if you've already kind of entered the challenge in a past class, then simply email support@makemusicyourlife.com, and we'll add you, no problem. But I use standard filter LP and HB frequency to divide bass, low, mid, and high, so I don't have to use more sounds, so I'm faster in splurging. Is that okay, or are there no rules? So I think you've slightly misunderstood the frequency range thing there. It's not really that's not really what this is about. So hang on, let me just go over to Pewtercam. All right. Yeah, I've just noticed Daniel talking about some softwares do it automatically, even if you don't play. Yeah. Oh no, even if you don't play so steadily. No, that makes sense. Sorry. Ignore me. Oh, Ron's asking a further question. Sorry, I didn't see that. So, playing that in with the keyboard, do you have it set up initially to snap to grid? For a drum at least. I'm putting it in manually more to keep it in better time. So, I just, if I need to, I quantize it. I don't need to keep it. So that's an interesting way that you're looking at it. Everything is fixable. You don't need it to be right first time. Yeah. So, and you can set most DAWs to snap to a particular grid. So if I was doing a I'll undo that. All right. Hello, where are you? Oh man. There we go. All right. I don't actually know how to do it because I don't do this. So let's see if it works. Can you do it yet? No. Yeah, so what I tend to do personally is I don't I don't get it. I don't set it to snap to a certain grid personally for two reasons. One, I want to be able to hear how bad I am, yeah, because that motivates me to practice to get more in time. Yeah. By the way, melodics is a really good way of practicing getting in time. It's a software which teaches you how to play things in, and it's kind of got practice stuff. So go and check out melodics. It's a paid thing, but I think there is a free element to it as well. But anyway, so one of the reasons I don't snap to grid is because I want to see where I'm bad so that I can practice. Yeah. So I know for a fact through not doing that I always anticipate the beat. Yeah. So that means that in playing, I can focus on what I feel maybe is delaying, yeah, the playing. So it actually makes my playing better to be able to see my mistakes. Yeah. The other reason that I don't snap to grid on when I'm playing things in is that actually the mistakes often lead to better ideas. So say I play something in incorrectly in at the wrong rhythm. If I'd have just put it in the rhythm that I wanted to play, that I wanted to, my mind wanted to play, then I'm kind of stuck in this kind of box of thinking. Yeah. Whereas if I make mistakes, often I'll make a ridiculous error and maybe play the wrong sound, or play it in a strange place in the bar, and I'm like, ooh, that's really kind of weird, but cool. That gives me another idea. So I actually encourage myself to make mistakes in the process, because that's where many of the best ideas come from. But yes, most DAWs will have a setting where you can snap to grid. So coming back to Bart's question. Coming back to Bart's question about the frequency ranges. So here, this is confusing matters, this 808 down here. Right. So with the frequency ranges, here I've got my beats, yeah. Here I've got my bass, here I've got my low mid, here I've got my high mid, and here I've got my high, yeah. All that really is for me to have a kind of, right, in general, if I'm going to make an idea that kind of makes sense without too much thought, then I probably can get away with just having one thing in each of these frequency ranges. Yeah. And it's just to remind me of that. But I don't slavishly have, like, the SH7 is always going to be the place. You know, that's not what I'm doing. Sometimes the SH7, I will just end up, because of what's happened before it, because we want to be freer than that, is going to be like something higher up. Yeah. Sometimes I'll play something in the atmosphere, which is here is set to high. Yeah, which ends up being a bass thing. Yeah, because of what happens before it. With the piano, I can play anything from a bass to a high thing. Yeah. So I don't slavishly kind of follow those frequency ranges for each of these things, but it's just kind of a starting point. So by kind of cutting low, mid, and high here, you're overthinking the direction. Yeah. Now I've got 5 parts, you know, the way I think about it, I've got 5 parts in there, and I know that basically that's, like, I don't want to overfill any of these frequency ranges. It's almost like a reminder. And I feel I will start. I mean, the SH7 is particularly good for the bass end. It's filth. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So that often does happen, but I don't stick to it, and I certainly wouldn't be like putting myself in a straitjacket if I've EQ cut all of these different things. Like, it's way too early to be cutting EQs, because you're kind of cutting yourself off from sort of the opportunities. We want to creating conditions isn't about building a prison for yourself. Creating ideal conditions to splurge into isn't about creating a prison for yourself. You know, a template isn't chains. It's wings. Okay. So, Irenka, coming to Irenka's question. I'm not really a producer. I started with writing poetry, then have been working my way into songwriting and composing. So most of the times my ideas start with words and melodies. And then I work my way into creating arrangements for my song. For me, it's all about the message and what I'm trying to say. I think that's very true of most people. So this splurge process is very backwards to my usual creative process. Do you have any specific recommendations or adjustments for someone coming from that side of the songwriting process? So, yeah, I'm not sure you're understanding what splurging is, because nothing that you said there has made me think it's the opposite way around. So either there's a couple of possibilities. Either I'm not understanding how you've explained it, Irenka, or you're not understanding what splurging is. Yeah. So let me give you an example. I went through a period of writing lyrics, yeah, because I thought when I came back to making music, anything was available to me. I was able to do anything I wanted because I was coming back to making music. I had no kind of, the last time I'd made music or released anything was 8-9 years previous. So I kind of let go of that old artist that I was, so I could come back and almost do anything I wanted. So I was trying a few different things, and I thought, well, maybe I can write some songs. I wouldn't mind. I've always felt like doing that, and I actually ended up saying, no, I'm not going to do that. But when I did go through that, and the best way to make a decision like that is just to try it and see what happens. Yeah. So anyway, so when I started, and I did have specific things I wanted to say, and I was thinking about writing songs which were about the creative process, about what I do, but almost make them metaphorical. Yeah, so it sounded like I was singing about love, but actually what I was singing about was the creative process, or maybe I was singing about both. That was kind of my idea. So I had a very specific message. I wanted people, it was almost like, well, maybe my songs could almost be an extension of my coaching. So I had a message too. How did I start though? Did I start by going, what's the very best line I can come up with right now, which will express the message I am trying to put across? No, I didn't do that. What I did was this. Get notes. In fact, it was on phone. I remember I was sitting, I was lying in a bed. There's a bed in here. I don't actually sleep in here, but there's a bed in here for when I have to wake up ridiculously early or I go really late. I am a normal father and husband and do sleep in a bedroom with my wife. Okay, but there is a bed in here, right there. Yeah, and I remember I was writing some lyrics, so I got notes up on my phone. Yeah, the Apple Notes. It was an iPhone, and I said for the next, because I was procrastinating about getting started with this. I said, right, for the next however long, 5-10 minutes, I am simply going to type, yeah, without any kind of intention other than I am writing lyrical stuff, and in general it's about the message that I'm trying to put across. So I started writing, and there was no editing whatsoever. I just went yeah, and I think I went for about 8 minutes or so, yeah, and it was an incredible experience actually, because I just found that a lot of it was rubbish, but then something would click and I'd just get into this thing where stuff would come out. And when I read it back a few days later, because I did the same thing as the musical splurge, when I read it back a few days later, I was absolutely astounded because there was about 3 or 4 choruses in there. Yeah, so it was a really long thing. So about 3 or 4 things that could have been chorus lyrics which were like quite deep as well. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? They sounded good as well, and they were very lyrical. Yeah, I'm not saying that they were works of genius. They obviously needed a lot of work in order to make them usable. But there was also some verses in there, and there was some stuff that I didn't even realize I wanted to say. Yeah. So the fact that there's a message doesn't mean that you have to. Yeah. You can just, splurging is the ideal way to start any creative process. Yeah. So that's why I was saying I'm not sure you're getting what splurging is. So Rob, for the template, he's saying for the template I wasn't happy with it. Yeah, so that specific technical. So coming back to Rob's question about the technical issue, so that if you weren't happy with the template, yeah, that what you're trying to do isn't the only way to solve that. I guarantee you that. So Irinka's saying, I find it hard to compose music without having a specific meaning, feel in mind. Well, okay, and then you said, and yes, I am one of those incurable perfectionist overthinkers. So first of all, if you tell yourself, so where does your perfectionism come from, Irinka? Yeah. So if you say, I am an incurable perfectionist overthinker, what are you telling your mind? That you are incurable. Yeah. And I have noticed this time and again, what you tell your mind, it will deliver for you in spades. You are not incurable. I have helped people who are, I mean, they are so, there's one particular guy, I'm sure he won't mind, I mean, he's got a very common name, so he won't even know, but he's called Sam. And he has been struggling to make music for like literally 20 years. And he, I think, would agree with me in saying that when he came into my world, he was what he would have described as incurable, perfectionist, overthinker. Just, I think it was probably about a month ago, he sent me a track that he'd made. And I was absolutely blown away. Okay, it was so good. And he's made an album, he's making another one. He's just totally... and he is no longer, I mean, he still has those tendencies, we all do, right? But he has been cured. Okay, so do not tell yourself this. You are not incurable. Okay, so that's why you're finding it hard to compose music without having a specific meaning or feel in mind. I mean, what I just said about there's a difference between having an intention, which is almost like setting a condition, and overthinking. Intention isn't thinking. Intention is almost like an umbrella thing we have over it. So I can go into, so for instance, I can go into this splurge that I'm about to do and just go, okay, I am going to make a piece of music about my first breakup. Okay, so now that's an intention. Yeah. And then I go into the process and I splurge it. Now, what that intention is a direction. It's a starting point. It's a signpost. Yeah. But as soon as I'm in the process, I'm in the process. And yes, I am moving in the direction of making it about my first ever breakup. Yeah. But if something else happens and it doesn't sound like that, that doesn't matter because I'm in the process and then I can step out of it. Yeah. I think the real key for you, Arenka, is understanding that there is a difference between intention and thinking. Coming back. Gaetan, talking about kids, this is a great question. In your time, you have helped producers. Have you seen beginner producers become successful in music with a more than a full-time job and kids? Yes, definitely. There's this idea. I mean, I remember I went and recorded some music with a really, really successful musician in the UK called James Taylor. It was like a Hammond organ player, and I actually went to his house, and we recorded this thing. And he had kids, and at that point, I think I was about 20 something. I was a 20 something, and I didn't have kids. And I was like, man, how do you do so much without kids? And he said to me, you know what, Mike? Having kids was the thing that was when I actually started to really become successful. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be successful without kids. That's ridiculous. But there is definitely a thing called the baby bump. Yeah, and it's about, and I'm not talking about, when a woman is pregnant, it's a bump in motivation. that I've noticed, like, I mean, it happens. I mean, it's different for the woman, obviously, because they've had the baby, and a mother is different to a father. But particularly for the fathers, it's weird what happens. They just sort of become like they're on fire. Everything becomes like much more. You're like, hang on a minute, it's not just me now. It's like there's this little thing, this little helpless thing that can't do anything other than poo and puke, and that's about it, really, and cry. Yeah, who is 100% reliant on me. And it's amazing what happens. Time starts turning up where there wasn't time. You stop doing things that you were doing before that you realise, well, why on earth am I doing them? Yeah. So absolutely, there are lots and lots of people. I mean, in fact, almost all of my, but maybe not almost all. Maybe 75% of the people in my mastermind groups have extremely stressful full-time jobs. They own their own businesses. They're often lawyers. Some of them own companies who've started their own companies. They're running teams. Doctors, there's a student doctor, and many of them have kids as well, and that has actually as much to do with the success that they have as it does in holding them back. Time is an extremely, I know it's not flexible and it's always moving forward. There's nothing we can do about that, but what we can do in it is almost infinitely flexible. I know it doesn't feel like that, but believe me, it is. Okay. John, any tips on getting a commercial drone type baseline? Classic example, Eric Prydz, Call on Me. Cliche. So first thing I would say is just use a synth and press the key. Yeah, and you've got a drone baseline. If you're really zeroed in on a specific sound, I would always... You're definitely asking the wrong person about that, because I'm like, yeah, that's just not what I do. This isn't the right place for that, because I actually severely question that. Here's how to make a bass sound that sounds like this, because it's just so anti-creative. It's the opposite of creative. Yeah. So the answer to that, I'm afraid, John, is no. I'm sure there's absolutely loads of YouTube tutorials out for that, and I hate to send people to that kind of rabbit hole. But what I would recommend, John, is I would like to ask you, if I was having a conversation with you, is why do you want to do that? What's the reason? Because I'm not sure that is where you're going to find your best music. Now, there is an argument for, and I have actually taken a piece of music that I'm kind of obsessed with, yeah, and I have literally tried to copy it as a training tool for myself. But, and this is a huge but, which goes to the very core of your question, I haven't tried to copy it by going and asking people, how do you make a sound like that? Because that then negates the value of copying it. And by the way, when I say copying it, I do not put it out. I'm not copying it to release it. I'm copying it simply as a way of training myself. Yeah. So I did it. Yeah. I mean, I did it a few times, kind of early on. In copying it, what I do is I actually try and work out how I can figure out how to make that sound without knowing any information. Because when I did this, there wasn't an internet. Well, I mean, there was, but there wasn't any information about how to do stuff. You just had to figure it out, right? So I actually had to figure it out with the equipment I had. Yeah. And that was the training. That was it's like, how could I actually do this? I mean, and this was without knowing anything really about, because this was very early on, knowing anything about, I mean, I only just knew how to plug in the MIDI and stuff like that. So I actually tried to recreate the sound myself by doing it my way. And through doing that, I actually discovered other stuff that was even better for me anyway than the thing I was trying to copy. I mean, I never got it to sound exactly like that. Why do you want to get to sound exactly like that? Yeah, because what you're likely to do if you're thinking along those lines, I'm not saying you are, but you could end up making a bad version of something that is already really good. Okay, so there's a few issues in your question that I would really, really like sincerely ask you, deeply ask you to ask yourself why you want to do that. So great, thank you, ADT. I'm glad that it's helping. When I splurge, Mirrorfly, when I splurge, I still get stuck in loops. Arrangement just never comes naturally to me. When I try it, it just ends up a long loop. Any advice to make longer splurges? So again, this is one of those things. Arrangement just never comes naturally to me. Walking didn't come naturally to you. I've had 4 children, and I've seen them all learn how to walk. Didn't come naturally. I've seen them learn how to eat. Didn't come naturally. I've seen them learn to talk. That didn't come naturally. Nothing comes naturally. Okay, so that's the first thing. Don't tell yourself things like that. Yeah. I mean, do tell yourself things like that, but it's kind of a meaningless statement. Nothing comes naturally. You kind of have to learn it. Yeah. Now, how do you learn it? Yeah. So if I have I mean, in general, Mirrorfly, a lot of your questions, you seem to be coming from a place of sort of frustration. And that it would be good if you just tried to relax, take a deep breath and say, it will come. I'm learning. And it is good. Where I am is good. And if you say to yourself, where I am is good, how do you feel? Probably like, no. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just coming through the text in a way which isn't true. So I understand when people type. This is something that I'm learning as I'm doing these live streams. When people type, it's obviously, it's not a very accurate form of communication. So I'd have to have a conversation with you to know if this is true. It sounds to me like you're coming from a place of weakness in yourself. I can't do this. I can't do that. And like, what can you do really well? And just come from there, because it's not. I don't think it's serving you at the moment. But let's just draw some parts, okay, on here. And I'm not obviously writing anything here. And I'm going to have to go in 10 minutes. So it looks like I'm not going to get to do a splurge because I've been answering questions. But that's fine. So, hang on a minute. Right. I'm just going to draw some parts here. Oh. That's not a part. Yeah. So let's just say, all right, that I'm just doing a splurge with 3 tracks. Yeah. Learning happens. It can't really happen in an atmosphere, or it happens really slowly in an atmosphere of anxiety and fear. Yeah, the very best learning, the quickest learning, the most natural, to use that word, learning happens in an atmosphere of exploration, curiosity, fun, that kind of thing. Not everything can be fun. I get that. Yeah. But that's where the best learning happens. So you really want to focus on you really want to focus on like avoiding that kind of, it's almost like this helplessness that people feel, or this sort of frustration that there's a problem. Oh no, it's all failing. I'm rubbish. You're not going to learn in the fastest you can, and when you feel like that. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a few things that you can do to kind of help there. One is meditation, and the other is understanding that anything that you can't do is an opportunity to learn something. Yeah. So be kind to yourself. Treat yourself like you would your best friend. I bet you don't talk to your best friend like you talk to yourself. So yeah, anyway, so I'm splurging. Yeah. So let's say I started by playing an SH7 part, right? Well, then in the next 8 bars, I'm going to put in the piano part. I put in the piano part, right? So I put that on the screen there. And then the next 8 bars, I've put in the omnisphere part, wherever that is. Okay, so now at this point, I have got, at this point here, I have got all three parts playing. Yeah. So in a sense, I have an arrangement. Yeah. Now, that has come, to use the phrasing, naturally to me, because I set a rule for myself that I'm just going to put these parts in the order in which I put them, 8 bars apart. Yes, I've already created an arrangement. I know it's not right, but it is an arrangement. Yeah. So now I've got all these 3 parts playing. So I'm going to leave that playing for 8 bars. And then, without even listening to it, I'm going to say to myself, well, what would I like to listen to together? Well, I've already listened to these 2 together, but I haven't heard these 2 together. So I'm going to remove that. Okay. What else would I like to listen to? Well, I've heard these 2 together. I've heard them all together, and now I've heard these 2 together. What I haven't heard is this one and this one together. Okay, so I'm going to do this, and I remember I'm doing this all visually. Even if there was music in there, I could do this visually, right? And there, I now have an arranged 1 minute splurge. Now I know there aren't any parts in there, but I could do that if there were parts in there, no matter what the parts were. And then maybe what I could even say to myself is, well, I wonder what it's like when I bring everything in after that. All right, well, I'll do that then. Yeah. And again, you can do this without listening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put that in there. I'm going to keep that going. Yeah. And keep that going. And actually, I tell you what I wonder what it would be like actually to have a little bar of silence before everything comes in there. Yeah. And again, I'm not listening. I don't have to be listening to do this. I could just do it like this. All right. Now, Mirrorfly, does that look like an arrangement? Yes. Is it good? I don't know. Who cares? I'm splurging. So, does that look like a loop? No, it doesn't. It looks like an arrangement. So, hopefully there is some clarity about how you can just take the confusion out of arranging, because then what you do is you export that and then you listen to it back, and instead of listening to a loop, which is just a loop, it's not a piece of music, you've got a piece of music. It might be rubbish, might not work, but you've got something to work with which actually is in the context, so you've got the different parts and they're in context of being it moves, it goes somewhere, things come out, things come in. So hopefully that has given you some clarity around that. So I think so. John's saying, I think the reason. Oh, Gaetan, congratulations! Recently found out you're expecting. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's the most challenging thing that I've ever done, having children, but it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done, and it is definitely without those little bastards up there, I am convinced I wouldn't have got half as far as I have. Yeah, and again, that's not to say that you have to have children in order to get far, but just for me, it was the thing that changed everything. Just literally overnight. I was talking to one of my clients, Claude von Street, the other day. He agreed with me as well. There is a definite thing, a motivational. I don't know. It's just not just motivation. It's a whole your whole world changes. So fantastic! Congratulations. Best to the missus. Hope it all goes well and she stays healthy. So John's saying thanks. I think the reason is that it's quite a fundamental commercial sound and a bit standard in some types of dance music. So yes, it seems getting it right is tough. Right. So you are thinking in let me give you my thinking around this. When I say it is quite a fundamental commercial sound and a bit of a standard, yeah, I'm like, well, that it might well be an argument for not. I mean, it depends. If you are a ghostwriter, yeah, or if you are making music for TV and ads where they say, I want you to make an ad that sounds like this Eric Prydz track. Yeah, well, in that case, that may be a very good reason for doing this. If you want to be an artist in your own right, I think maybe just not actually focusing on how to make standard sounds, right, may well be a much better route to go. Because I can guarantee you, John, if you want to do well in commercial music, there is an absolute shed load of people who can do that, and they are going to be like light years ahead of you. So how you're going to make an impact in that industry or in any industry, it doesn't matter whether it's commercial, underground, it doesn't matter whether it's African nose flute music or whatever it is. Not that there is an African nose flute music, and if there is, I apologise for that. But it doesn't matter. Underwater, football music. Then it doesn't matter how you're going to make an impact in a very competitive market is by actually finding your sound, rather than trying to work out how to do standard sounds. That's just my take on it. It's not creativity is important too. Own creativity is important too. How that became standard was by people like Eric Prydz using their own creativity. There's not copying what everybody else does and then your own creativity. Your own creativity is it. I think it's really, really important. I'd love to actually have a conversation with you, John, because I think there's a lot of assumptions going on there which are gonna be holding you back, as far as I can tell from what you're writing anyway. Great, I'm glad it was helpful. Eurofly EOE is saying, when can one roll into a full program? What does that mean? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You'll have to clarify that for me. But anyway, it's 6:30. I've been answering questions for an hour and a half, and I've not even made a note of music. So I'm going to have to call a halt to this because I've got a meeting. But I will be back tomorrow, and maybe I'll be able to make some music tomorrow. But it's been great to actually answer your questions. Hopefully it's been helpful. I do have fundamentally quite a few ways of thinking about music, the industry, and how best to do things, or how the optimal way to do things, which do, like Irenka has kind of alluded to it in my conversations with John, I've been alluding to it as well, which do fly in the face of a lot of what you kind of get out there from what I call the music production industrial complex. It's like, but the reason for that isn't that I'm just intentionally trying to be contrary or anything. It's just I see a lot of people going down paths. I mean, I've coached so many people now going down paths which really, really hold them back, and it's because of the assumptions that I don't think anyone's trying to lead you down the wrong path. That's not it at all. But it's almost like the mass of information leads to a lot of incorrect assumptions, because you just get this kind of overwhelming thing. You start connecting things where it doesn't work like that. So one thing I would really, really recommend is, first of all, coming to all of my live streams and watching me all the time. No, but obviously, just check in with me every now and again, because one of the things I'm attempting to do is help you navigate what is a very overwhelming and confusing situation in terms of the music production, music composition landscape, but also offering you a route through it, which is actually focusing on you developing your thing and actually finding what your thing is. Because in a massively crowded market where there are legions and legions of music producers joining all the time, usually through iPhone apps, and then they upgrade and then they upgrade and then they end up in a situation like this, or with even more stuff. What is key is that you make absolutely loads of music, that music is you. And that can mean that it fits within a genre, but it is your version of it. And that you really have a healthy creative process, because when you have a healthy creative process, it's not a struggle to make music. It's almost like playing, like when you're addicted to a video game, it becomes like that. So that's what I'm attempting to do here. So when I answer questions and challenge you, it's really always done with love and with care in my heart, because I want I can see people in their questions. Sometimes I think, okay, this could go the wrong way, and I just want to make sure that you're kind of doing the things which will kind of deliver what you're looking for. Don't believe, I mean, I'm somebody on the internet saying stuff, so obviously I'm biased, but don't believe everything that you read. Yeah, particularly not on forums, because often those people haven't done anything really. They've just been on forums, and it's just a kind of information gathering exercise. So don't believe everything that you read and that everyone tells you. So hopefully that was helpful. I will speak to you tomorrow, same time tomorrow, I believe. I think it is the same time tomorrow, with day 4 of my Idea Explosion Challenge. I haven't splurged today, but I will be splurging tomorrow. I'm going to make sure of that. And also I am going to be splurging on my own outside of this live stream. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sanitized, and onwards and upwards.